The threat of another war. Why did Israel wade into a tribal clash in Syria? In Pakistan, will Asim Munir swap his uniform for the presidency? And will Donald Trump visit him later this year? In India, what explains the big bet on oil exploration? What's our plan if Trump sanctions Russian oil? I spoke to the petroleum minister earlier today. We will bring you excerpts of that interview. In Bangladesh, deadly clashes again. 4 killed, 14 arrested. We look at how the country remains caught in a cycle of violence almost a year since Sheikh Hasina left. Meanwhile, Trump has a new mission: make Coke great again. He's now tweaking cola recipes because world peace can wait. And controversy brews over Trump's pick for Malaysia ambassador. We will tell you why. On the trade front, China throttles battery tech exports. The trade war just found a new battleground. In science, a groundbreaking headline-grabbing moment. Babies born from the DNA of 3 people. We'll discuss why this is controversial and why Wipro is making news over an exit letter. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. India successfully test fires the indigenously developed Akash Prime air defense system. The 2-day trial was conducted in eastern Ladakh. Akash Prime is an upgraded version of the Akash missile system. It destroyed 2 unmanned targets at high altitudes. This is a major milestone in India's missile development program. Taiwan's capital Taipei holds air raid drills to prepare for a Chinese attack. Sirens force people off the streets and into underground shelters. The annual civilian drill is being held across Taiwan this week as a self-governed island readies itself for a potential invasion by Beijing, which insists that Taiwan is part of its territory. A fire at a shopping mall in eastern Iraq kills at least 60 people. Officials said many suffocated in bathrooms. The fire started on the first floor of the newly opened mall and quickly engulfed the 5-story building. The blaze is the latest in a country where safety regulations are often flouted. The UK will lower its voting age to 16 in general elections. The Labour government says it plans to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote. This landmark change will give the UK one of the lowest voting ages worldwide. The next general election in the country is scheduled for 2029. Junta led Burkina Faso to scrap its National Election Commission, claims it as a costly body that is prone to foreign influences. Elections were due to be held in the West African country in July last year, but the junta, which took over in a coup in 2022, extended its rule by 5 years. And heavy rains batter South Korea. At least 3 people have been killed and more than 1,000 evacuated. One region received more rainfall than it has in the last 120 years. Severe flooding swarmed roads and apartment complexes. Schools have been shut in the worst affected areas.
The economy is roaring, business confidence is soaring, incomes are up, prices are down, and inflation is dead. It's dead.
Donald Trump loves to take credit, whether he deserves it or not. He claims credit for ending the war between India and Pakistan, for brokering a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, and even for a new recipe of Coca-Cola. But here's what he should take credit for: slowing down the global economy with his tariffs, his trade wars, and his endless threats. This week, the United Nations has issued a warning. It is about Trump and his trade war. And it came from the UNCTAD, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. This is a body that tracks global trade and development, as the name suggests, and they have come up with an assessment on Trump's tariff war. They have found that it is hurting the global economy. These tariffs have disrupted supply chains and paralyzed investment. And all this has had a trickle-down effect on growth. According to one UN official, businesses are now, quote-unquote, sitting and waiting. They're unable to take decisions. Thanks to Trump's U-turns, they don't know which way to go. He keeps changing his mind and his policies with the consistency of a yo-yo. So the United Nations says he's slowing down the global economy, and they have given some data to prove this point. International investment has fallen. It has dropped to levels seen in 2008. Remember, 2008 was when the world was in a great recession. 5 months with Trump in office and we are back to those levels, 2008 levels. Needless to say, this is hurting global growth. Projections for this year have been slashed. Earlier, the world economy was supposed to grow at 2.8%. Now it has been reduced to 2.3%, and the United Nations assessment highlights this. It says, and I quote, "This number is much lower than the growth we experienced in the last decade. The first to bleed will be the developing world, especially countries in Southeast Asia, the likes of Vietnam, Cambodia, and Malaysia. They will be the first to be hit." These countries had emerged as the new export hubs after the pandemic, when companies pushed to diversify supply chains. When they built factories beyond China, these were the countries that emerged as the biggest gainers. But now US President Trump is targeting them. He has threatened a 40% tariff, 40% tariff on companies that export goods from these countries. In other words, if you're based in Vietnam, Cambodia, or Malaysia, your exports will be tariffed at 40%. This can ruin businesses. Trump's policies will have a sweeping impact on the developing world. His tariffs could cut exports by more than 50%, and that means slower growth and bigger job cuts. But guess what? By doing all of this, Trump is hurting the US too. He may claim that his policies will make the US economy stronger, but the fact is they face fears of recession themselves. And it may happen as early as next year. Apparently, there's a 48% chance of recession in the US. That's the assessment from ratings agency Moody's, a 48% probability, which is the highest since the worst days of the pandemic. Again, what is driving these fears? Consumer spending, for starters. Americans are not spending enough. In the month of May, they pulled back from spending on cars, hotels, and restaurants. So much for Trump's promise to bring prosperity back to America. What he's delivered instead is uncertainty, higher prices, and the growing risk of a shrinking economy. Donald Trump promised world peace, but he's delivering a global slowdown. And since we're on the subject, let's also look at his record on peace building. You won't believe it. Trump has been in office for about 5 months now, and in this time, in 5 months, he has launched more airstrikes than Joe Biden did in his full 4-year term. And this is a man who campaigned on ending wars. Instead, Trump is fueling more conflicts, which in turn are making economists even more nervous. Because Trump is waging both trade wars and military wars. He's causing bloodshed on both battlefields and balance sheets.
قصف جديد يا شباب قصف خطوط
It was just another day in Damascus until it wasn't. Out of nowhere, missiles hit the heart of the Syrian capital. The target? The Syrian Defense Ministry headquarters. Within seconds, the building blew up.
قصف جديد مبنى هيئة الأركان خالص قصف جديد يا شباب قصف خطونا بسرعة 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 بسرعة
إذا استهداف مبنى هيئة الأركان بشكل كامل
قصف ثاني.
A local TV channel was mid-broadcast when the strikes hit. The anchor was calmly reading the news, but behind her you can see the strike. Multiple floors caved in, one person was killed, 18 others were injured. And who launched the strike? Israel. Syria has now condemned the strikes. It has accused Israel of sowing discord.
أيها الشعب السوري الأبي.
Here, Israel resorted to extensive targeting of civilian and governmental facilities to undermine efforts, which greatly complicated the situation and pushed matters to a large-scale escalation. If it weren't for the effective intervention of American, Arab, and Turkish mediation, which saved the region from an unknown fate.
So why is Israel suddenly striking the Syrian capital, Damascus? The answer lies around 100 kilometers from Syria. In Syria, in fact, in this city called Suwaida. It is also called Suwaida. Suwaida is home to the Druze community. This is a religious minority in the region. The Druze faith emerged in the 11th century Egypt. It was an offshoot of Shia Islam. In terms of population, they are small, but they are strategically scattered all over West Asia. About 700,000 Druze live in Syria, mostly in the Suwaida province. This time, the flashpoint started as a tribal issue. On Sunday, Bedouin gunmen abducted a Druze vegetable vendor. This was along the Damascus highway. The Bedouins are a nomadic Arab ethnic group. Now, in a tit-for-tat move, Druze fighters kidnapped Bedouins, and that led to street battles. Now, this rivalry between the Bedouins and the Druze is not new. In fact, it predates modern-day Syria. There are disputes over land and resources. Things have turned violent in the past as well. But this time, the conflict took a political turn, courtesy the new government in Syria. You may remember this. Last December, Bashar al-Assad was ousted from Syria. A new government took his place. In fact, it's now in place. It is led by this man, former Al-Qaeda terrorist and rebel commander Ahmad al-Shara. But the province of Suwaida has largely governed itself. Local Druze militias established control. Of course, Damascus did not like that. So when this latest fight broke out, Syrian forces moved to Suwaida. They said they just wanted to separate both sides. Initially, Druze leaders welcomed this intervention, but soon they began resisting. This led to intense clashes. Almost 500 people were killed. Now, where does Israel feature in all of this? Israel has a Druze population of around 150,000, many of whom serve in the Israeli military. Israel also has 22,000 Druze residents in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Most of them still identify as Syrian. So when the Syrian government moved into Suwaida, Israel hit back with airstrikes. Yesterday, it stepped up the offensive by hitting Damascus. Prime Minister Netanyahu said it was to protect the Druze.
We have an obligation to maintain the southwestern region of Syria as a demilitarized zone bordering Israel. We will not allow a return to a situation where a second Lebanon is being established there, and we are also obligated to protect the Druze residents.
But here's the thing. This is not Netanyahu's first dance with Syria. You see, Israel captured the Golan Heights in 1967. Then, in 1981, they annexed more territory. This is not recognized by most of the world, but in 2019, Donald Trump, when he was president last, in 2019, he gave Netanyahu a win. He recognized the Golan Heights as Israeli territory. And since then, Netanyahu has militarized the region. He has built settlements. He has turned the region into a buffer zone. So is this about protecting the Druze, or is this just another cover, a way to expand Israel's influence deeper into Syria? Is Netanyahu using this unrest to carve out a new red line? Well, that's what Syria thinks. Syrian President al-Shara says Israel is causing a larger escalation, one that could plunge the region into another war.
Open war with Israel at the expense of the Druze people and their security is destabilizing Syria and the entire region. Between allowing the Druze leaders and sheiks to return to their homes and giving priority to the national interest over those who want to tarnish the reputation of the honorable people of the mountains.
West Asia is already on the edge. One more war could push it over, so the US swiftly stepped in. It discussed moves to end the violence. Syria also agreed on a deal with Druze leaders, and a ceasefire is now in place. Syrian troops are withdrawing from Sweden. But here's the catch. Just because the guns have gone silent does not mean the war is over. Netanyahu may call it defense, but Damascus calls it provocation. So the ceasefire may hold for now, but peace has always been fragile in West Asia. And once again, the cracks are beginning to show. It's promotion season right now. Everyone's looking for a good hike or a role change. But whatever you get, I can guarantee this: you won't beat Asim Munir. At the start of this year, he was a general. In the month of May, he became a field marshal. And in July, there are reports of him becoming the president. Let me repeat that. Asim Munir is being talked up as Pakistan's next president. Where did that come from? The rumors first emerged on social media. Users pointed to a proposed constitutional amendment, the 27th Amendment. It seeks to overhaul the government system. A diminished judiciary, weakened provinces, and a much stronger presidency. Reports say such a change is in the works, and in that context, rumors began swirling. The current Pakistani president is Asif Ali Zardari. He won't be allowed to hold such authoritarian powers because Zardari is just a rubber stamp. He has no political standing or support base. So naturally, the guess was Asim Munir. Then on Tuesday, things appeared to be afoot. A flurry of meetings was reported in Islamabad. First, Asim Munir met Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Shortly after that, Sharif went on to meet Asif Ali Zardari. So once again, the conversation ignited. Was Zardari going to resign? Was Asim Munir going to replace him? Pakistan's defense minister weighed in on these rumors. He confirmed that the issue was discussed. He confirmed that Asim Munir's presidency was discussed, but it wasn't being put into motion. Well, thank God for Defense Minister Khwaja Asif. Trust him to casually drop state secrets. Frankly, the discussion itself is telling. Normally, democracies don't replace presidents with army chiefs. If Pakistan is discussing it, it does raise questions. Is it possible? And why would Munir do it? Now, to answer the first question, in Pakistan, anything is possible. When army chiefs capture power, they usually use the presidency. Ayub Khan did it. He became president after taking over as army chief. So did Yahya Khan in the 1970s, Ziaul Haq in the 1980s, and Pervez Musharraf in the 2000s. So there is an established precedent in Pakistan. They've been independent for almost 78 years. 78 years of this country. Of these, 33 have been spent under such military presidents. So it is very much possible in Pakistan. Which brings us to the second question. Why would Munir do it? Well, right now there is a hybrid system in Pakistan. The army chief runs the country. He meets foreign leaders. He rallies for investments, and he sets the government's agenda. The prime minister effectively works for him. And the president? He just shows up when necessary. Maybe Asim Munir is tired of this hybrid setup. Maybe he wants to ditch the pretense altogether. Unfortunately, we can't be sure. Becoming president would give him a lot more power, but it would also attract global concern. Because while Pakistan may think that this is perfectly normal, most of the world will not. Although there could be one exception. US President Donald Trump. He hosted Asim Munir at the White House last month. He called him a great man. And now there is talk of Trump visiting Pakistan. Now, just to be clear, this is not an official announcement. It came from Pakistani media reports. They said that Trump would be visiting Pakistan on September 18th. They also said that he would fly from Islamabad to New Delhi. Now, you can't find those reports because Pakistani media has pulled them down. They have deleted those stories. So we cannot confirm whether Trump is visiting or not. But here's what we can tell you. Even if he visits, he won't be doing it. He won't be visiting Pakistan or India on September 18th. And do you know why? Because he will be in UK then. Trump's state visit to the UK will last from 17th to 19th of September. So obviously he cannot visit Pakistan on the 18th. That said, he could visit later. And if he does, it would be a big deal for Pakistan. The last US president to visit Pakistan was George Bush, and that was way back in the year 2006. So a visit by Donald Trump, the US president, would mean a lot to them. Even more if he travels to India after that. You see, most world leaders used to do this before the 2000s. They would club India and Pakistan together. New Delhi has worked very hard to break this hyphenation. And eventually we succeeded. You don't see leaders club India and Pakistan anymore. If they visit India, they skip Pakistan. The question is, will Trump rip up this playbook? His recent comments do not inspire confidence. He has repeatedly clubbed India and Pakistan together. He is also claiming credit for the recent ceasefire. Those remarks have already soured India's ties with the US. A visit like this could set it back years.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Aviation sources have revealed to CNN News 18 that all mechanical and technical aspects are being investigated. The fuel switch cannot move without human intervention, but it is being probed if the fuel valve malfunctioned due to some technical or mechanical reasons. Let's go back to our colleague Arunima to understand more. Arunima, over to you.
So I tried to explain to you why fuel valve is suddenly in focus, because there is consensus that the fuel control switch cannot move without human intervention. Yet it seems that the AIB has concluded that the reason the Ahmedabad crash happened is because of engine losing thrust, and the engine lost thrust because fuel was not available. Why was fuel not available? If you see the pictures that have been posted in the AIB report, it's very clearly showing that the switch was in the run position. So the SOP was followed by the pilots. The SOP is, if your engine is losing power, you move the fuel control switch from cutoff to run, and try and cut off and then relight, and that is what has been done in this case as well. So SOP has been followed. The question is, why was fuel not available to the engine? If the fuel switch had not been moved manually, what else could have possibly happened? And that is why the focus is now moving to the fuel valve. The word transition, some of the pilots who have been with us on our shows have also said that the word transition is more apt for the fuel valve rather than the fuel switch, because the switch just moves from on to off. It has to move from run to cut off. There's no transition. The word for the switch is move. If AIB has used the word transition, could it be an indication of the fuel valve? And the reason is because of that malfunction that we just spoke about. The pilot report gave that error message, stab POS XDCR. It does not impact your fuel switch directly. But the question is, did it impact the overall sensors of the aircraft in any way? If it impacted the overall sensor and it went unnoticed, did it in any way impact the softwares that are meant to be running this fully automated aircraft? The two...
We've built resilience and we have been able to navigate those challenges.
Oil is like a bad habit. You know it's not good for your health, you know that there are alternatives, but you just can't kick it. For India, oil has been a national security challenge too. We never had enough crude reserves, so we import from other countries. From which countries? Depends on the state of the world. Wars, tariffs, policy, piracy. All of these factors have shaped India's energy security. But now the government of India has an ambitious mission to end our foreign reliance, to become energy independent by 2047. Earlier today, I sat down with India's Petroleum Minister Hardeep Singh Puri. We talked about this ambitious plan. Right now, he is looking to speed up oil exploration, basically to find oil and gas reserves within India. Certain areas have already been identified. The next step is giving out contracts. Private and state firms are free to put in their bids. As always, the highest bidder will get the exploration right. As of now, 9 rounds have been completed. The last contracts were awarded in April 2025. And how much area was that? Around 1.36 lakh square kilometers. If you win the contract, you can drill in this area. A 10th round has also been announced, and this one will cover around 2.5 lakh square kilometers, making it one of the largest exploration projects in the world. And some of these are offshore, meaning the exploration will happen at sea. The minister says India is close to a major discovery. Where? Near the Andaman Sea. It could hold around 1.8 trillion liters of oil. And if true, this would be a major success story. Unfortunately, such stories are rare in our country. In a lot of cases, companies simply sit on these oil blocks. They bid for them, they win the bid, but they do not develop them. I asked Minister Puri how he would prevent that.
There have been instances in the past where companies have won bids, but they've not developed oil fields. So how do you make sure that companies have won bids, but they've not developed oil fields?
No, not one. Many of them. And I think they are getting the correct response now. We're just cancelling them. Because it's very easy. What you do is you bid in a large number, quote unrealistic thing, become L1, and then you sit on it. How can you justify somebody who's won a bid 12 years ago, and every time you talk to him, abhi ho raha, abhi ho raha, abhi ho raha, nahi bhai, nahi hoga. And on that basis, you're raising money in the outside market. No, the whole thing comes full circle, and we will contest those.
In 2025, this may sound a bit weird because oil is seen as the main villain of climate change. We have summits to reduce oil usage, to invest in green energy. In that context, does a mega oil push make sense? Or is it a step backwards? I asked that question to Minister Puri. He said this plan is not about an affinity towards oil, it's about dealing with the ground reality.
You know, the world over countries are talking about ending new oil exploration. And here we are launching this mega project. Do you face pushback from governments or climate groups?
When this business started, I was a little worried because it's so easy to talk about climate change without knowing the reality. Yes, when I first joined the Council of Ministers, I'm talking about 2017, yes, we wanted to get a lot of this thing, no good, no good. When I became Petroleum Minister in July 21, no fresh investment is going into it, but all that has changed. Why has it changed? Because of drill, baby, drill, or no? I think it's changed because of a ground reality. The ground reality is that even if you want to make the transition, and we are very serious, and we're the only country which is, I think the only country which has met its Paris commitment, but when you want to transition, you transition from the present to where you want to transition to. You must have the resources for that transition.
Like he said, you transition from the present to the future, and presently India faces a new energy challenge. Tariffs from Donald Trump. He has given Russia 50 days to strike a deal with Ukraine. If not, he is threatening them with tariffs. Not just direct tariffs, but also secondary ones. Say you buy goods from Moscow, maybe oil or gas or fertilizers, then the US will impose tariffs on you as well for buying from Russia. Trump suggested these tariffs could be as high as 100%, but a proposed US bill says they could be 500%. And if that happens, it's a problem for India. Russia is our top energy supplier right now. They make up more than 30% of our oil imports. So India is right in line to face those secondary tariffs. But the petroleum minister is not worried.
So we are buying 30% of our crude from Russia, and now the Americans have threatened secondary sanctions. What impact do you see on India's oil supply, and what is our backup plan, sir?
Well, first and foremost, madam, I don't feel any pressure in my mind. And I don't think my boss's mind is wired to feel any pressure. And that's where I draw my strength from. During this period, India has diversified the sources of supply, and we have gone, I think, from about 27 countries that we used to buy from to about 40 countries now. But more than that, if you go into should you buy from a source 1 or should you buy from a source 2, we have been clear from the day go that we will buy from wherever we have to.
So India doesn't feel the pressure. We will buy from wherever we have to. But will that also include Iran? At one point, Iran was a major oil supplier. In the year 2007, they made up 12% of our imports. Today, it's come down to 0.04%. The reason? US sanctions. But now there's a window of opportunity. Trump is looking for a nuclear deal with Iran. He's also allowing China to buy oil from them. Does that offer India a chance? We'll listen into what the minister said.
We stopped buying from Iran post the secondary sanctions in 2018-19. Have we talked to the Americans about a possibility of an opening there?
Don't make a mistake. They're still supplying. We are not buying. That's one thing. It's not that Iranian oil is off the market.
But will we start buying?
I will not buy.
Do you see us start buying?
Look, we are a country anchored in the rule of law. If there is a sanction to which we agree, I mean, anybody gets up and places a unilateral sanction, it's a different thing. I'm not obliged. But if it's a sanction which we've accepted, we will not violate it.
Certainly, these are turbulent times. India is speeding up its oil exploration. The energy market is roiled by sanctions and tariffs. Once shut-off markets are being unlocked, and all of this is happening in the middle of a green pivot. Remember, India is one of the few countries doing it right. The Paris Accords had called for 50% green power by 2030. So half of your electricity capacity should be from fossil fuels. And India achieved that this year, a full 5 years before the deadline. So New Delhi's strategy can be best described as a cocktail of everything. I guess when the energy security of 1.4 billion people is at stake, it has to be. In Bangladesh, deadly clashes have broken out, this time in Gopalganj, which is the hometown of Bangladesh's founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And this is how it started. A political party called the NCP announced a march. This is a party born out of last year's protests, the protests that led to the ouster of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. It's been almost 1 year since she fled the country. So when this party announced a march, Hasina's loyalists thought that it was a ploy to desecrate Sheikh Mujib's mausoleum. So they took to the streets. Security forces were called in, and soon it turned into a riot. 4 people have been killed, 14 have been arrested. The Yunus government has promised an investigation, but the clashes show how Bangladesh remains in a flux almost a year after Sheikh Hasina's ouster. Our next report tells you more.
A student-led procession wound its way through the sweltering streets of Gopalganj. It's the ancestral home of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the founding father of Bangladesh. The rally was organized by the National Citizen Party, a self-proclaimed reformist movement born from last year's protests. Their stated goal was to commemorate a year since the so-called July Revolution, one that ended Sheikh Hasina's 16-year rule. But few were convinced it was just a march. By sundown, 4 people were dead. Dozens were injured. 14 people were arrested. Armored personnel carriers rolled into the town, and Gopalganj was put under a 22-hour military curfew. To understand what happened, you have to understand what Gopalganj means to Bangladesh. It's the hometown of Sheikh Mujibur and his resting place. It's also the heartland of Sheikh Hasina's Awami League, which ruled Bangladesh for most of the last 2 decades. So when the NCP announced a rally in Gopalganj, locals saw it not as a march for progress, but a provocation. On Wednesday night, former PM Sheikh Hasina said that the marchers had plans to demolish Bangabandhu's mausoleum. So Hasina loyalists feared the next step, the desecration of Mujibur's mausoleum at Tungipara. After all, in February, a mob torched the Dhanmondi residence of Sheikh Mujibur, a site converted into a national museum. No arrests were made then. So Hasina supporters didn't want to take any chances this time around. They went around the town chanting Joy Bangla slogans. They also stormed the rally site. Security forces poured into the town. Clashes erupted, and soon it was out of control. By midnight, the army had taken control. Troops in combat gear stood watch over the streets of Gopalganj. The NCP blamed the state and intelligence agencies for failing to prevent this.
If this government does not ensure that the Awami League can no longer remain in Bangladesh for even a single day, then let it be known all of Bangladesh is already blockaded, and this blockade will not be lifted. My question to the government is, why were my fellow comrades injured there? If they cannot return safely to Dhaka, then this sit-in movement will spread across all of Bangladesh.
The state, in turn, blamed Hasina's supporters. Meanwhile, Hasina's Awami League party has issued several statements on X, blaming the interim government for the deaths and injuries. India too has taken note of the violence.
On your question regarding Gopalganj, see, we follow all developments in our region closely and take cognizance of what's happening there. And accordingly, we take action if required on our side.
Currently, the Yunus regime has promised an investigation, but few believe it will go anywhere. Bangladesh has seen too many of these probes that lead to committees, committees that lead to silence. And then there is Muhammad Yunus. A year ago, Yunus was hailed by international observers as a stabilizing figure. But inside Bangladesh, the optimism has long since faded. So what's clear is this. Even almost a year after Sheikh Hasina was forced to flee, the country hasn't moved forward. Bangladesh remains stuck in purgatory, governed by slogans and violence, not consensus or constitutionality.
These are busy times for Donald Trump. Just look at how many issues he's juggling. Prospect of a war in Syria, backlash over Jeffrey Epstein, more escalation in Ukraine, and a no-holds-barred fight with his central bank chair. Yet, guess what he has posted about yesterday? Coca-Cola. That's what he posted about. Trump is trying to make Coke great again. How? By tweaking the recipe. First, let me quote from what he said. I have been speaking to Coca-Cola about using real cane sugar in Coke in the United States, and they have agreed to do so. I'd like to thank all of those in authority at Coca-Cola. This will be a very good move by them. You will see, it's just better. Now, some background here. Coca-Cola uses corn syrup to sweeten their drink in the United States. Donald Trump says they will now use cane sugar. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why is Trump announcing this change? It's not a national security decision. It's not a foreign deal. It's just a change in recipe. And for the record, Coke has not confirmed this change. They have appreciated Trump's interest in their drink. They've also said that a new product range will be announced soon, but no confirmation on the cane sugar. Now, this episode also raises a number of questions, like what does Coca-Cola use in other countries? Does it affect the taste? And is cane sugar better than corn syrup? Coca-Cola's original recipe used cane sugar. But in the 1970s and 1980s, something changed. Sugar prices began rising. The United States imposed quotas and tariffs on imports, so Coca-Cola turned to corn syrup, which is a no-brainer. Corn was America's top crop. But elsewhere, the recipe did not change. Even today, Coke uses cane sugar in Mexico, Europe, Australia, and India. So the US is a bit of an outlier. Now to the second question. Does it affect the taste? If you're a Coke connoisseur, yes, it does. And some Americans have talked about it. Since the year 2005, Coke has imported some bottles from Mexico. And these have cane sugar, the ones that come from Mexico. They're a favorite among soda lovers. You may hear some Americans ask for a Mexican Coke. So yes, there is a difference in taste. Which brings us to the final question. Is cane sugar better than corn syrup? At the end of the day, both of these are added sugars, so you must consume them in moderation. Most experts say no more than 30 grams per day of added sugar. So which one is healthier? Corn syrup has a higher amount of fructose. So if you drink a lot of Coke, then maybe cane sugar is slightly better. Having said that, it's not like corn syrup is so bad. In 2023, the American Medical Association published a report. They did not find reasons to curb corn syrup in food items. They also did not demand warning labels. So simply put, cane sugar is not healthier than corn syrup. Yet health is clearly the reason here for this switch. This move has Robert Kennedy's fingerprints all over it. Kennedy is Donald Trump's health secretary, basically America's health minister. A lot of his health opinions are anti-science. But he's a fierce warrior against added sugar. So chances are he is the one spearheading this recipe change. Just one problem though. This is not just a health decision. This is also financial and political. Like I said, corn is the biggest crop in America, and corn producers are a powerful voting bloc. The US Corn Refiners Association has already slammed this move. Here's what the group's president said, and I'm quoting, "Replacing high fructose corn syrup with cane sugar would cost thousands of American food manufacturing jobs, depress farm income, and boost imports of foreign sugar, all with no nutritional benefit." So expect some backlash from the producers, maybe even from Coca-Cola, because this is a bit tricky for them. Domestically made corn syrup is cheap, but imported cane sugar, it will be slightly more expensive. Right now, the US imports cane sugar from 40 countries. If you add Trump's tariffs, that's a worry for Coke. Like most American companies, they have tried to cozy up to President Trump. In January, they gave him a special gift, an inaugural Diet Coke bottle. And that is the biggest irony of all of this. Trump only drinks the diet version of Coke. It does not have cane sugar or corn syrup. Instead, it has a low-calorie sweetener, which is called aspartame. So Coca-Cola may appreciate Trump's interest in the beverage, but the president is talking about a major overhaul. Coke will have to change their supply chains. They will have to shell out more money, and not to mention risk consumer backlash. Let's see how this new cola war unfolds. Once upon a time, picking US ambassadors was boring. And that was a good thing, perhaps. They were chosen for their knowledge of foreign policy, their diplomatic finesse, and their ability to diffuse a global crisis. At the very least, they knew where they were being posted, basic things like what was the capital, maybe even how it was pronounced. But then came Donald Trump. And suddenly, the ambassador game had 3 new criteria: how well they flatter Trump, how often they are on Fox News, and how many times they've tweeted the words, "greatest president ever." This is diplomacy Trump style. And the latest example of this is Nick Adams, a man who's built a career being a so-called alpha male. Adams was born in Australia. He immigrated to the US in 2012. He is a naturalized American. Also, he's very controversial. He makes misogynistic remarks, he goes on Islamophobic rants, and he happens to be a vocal supporter of Israel. Now, this man has been appointed as the US ambassador to Malaysia. Obviously, he still has to be confirmed by the Senate, which is the upper house of the US Parliament. But this pick has raised more than some eyebrows. That's because Malaysia is a Muslim majority country. It is also a vocal supporter of Palestine. So appointing an envoy who is both Islamophobic and an Israel supporter can be problematic. Malaysian citizens have called it an insult. Youth politicians are up in arms. Former ministers are slamming this. They want Malaysia to reject this American appointment. And this is not a one-off case. Adams is only the latest in a list of bizarre Trump appointments, like Dr. Anjani Sinha. He is Trump's pick for ambassador to Singapore. And what are his qualifications? Well, he is an orthopedic surgeon. He once fixed Trump's shoulder. He is the president's golf buddy, and that is as good as it gets.
What year is Singapore next scheduled to be the ASEAN chair?
This year is Malaysia.
I didn't ask you about this year. When is Singapore going to be the ASEAN chair?
I don't know when, but this year...
2027. Please describe what holding the ASEAN chair will entail for Singapore and how you would support Singapore in your role as U.S. ambassador, if confirmed. What are some of the critical things that Singapore will have to do as a chair of ASEAN?
I mean, I agree with you that you had made a statement that all the ASEAN members should be treated like a...
No, answer my question.
Then you have Kimberly Guilfoyle. Trump chose her for the ambassador to Greece. She was dating his son, Donald Trump Jr., and she has been a familiar face in his circle. Charles Kushner, the ambassador to France. He is a real estate mogul, also a convicted con man. More importantly, he is the father-in-law of Ivanka Trump. That is Donald Trump's daughter. Tom Barrack was tabbed as the new envoy to Turkey. He is a private equity billionaire. He was indicted by the US Department of Justice, but Trump still chose him because of his lobbying for the Trump campaign. So you get the gist. In Trump's world, diplomacy is reality TV. Ambassadorships are rewards for loyalty. You defended him on Fox News? Well, here's a ticket to Italy. You called out the deep state? Then welcome to Brussels. You like Diet Coke as much as Trump? Well, pack your bags for New Zealand. Career diplomats are out. Trump's buddies, loyalists, and inner circle is in. But what makes the appointment of Nick Adams particularly jarring is the timing. Malaysia is a middle power in Southeast Asia. It's a long-time partner, trading partner of the US. So Washington has been treading carefully. After all, Malaysian public opinion is deeply anti-American right now, especially with the war in Gaza and the threat of 25% tariffs. One would imagine this is the time for charm. Instead, the Americans are sending a man who once said, "Real men don't read fiction." So what does it really take to become an ambassador? In some countries, it's only career diplomats. In others, it is people with political experience as well. But what about the United States? Well, for Trump, America is a brand. And like any brand, it needs influencers. They may not be fluent in diplomacy or nuance, but at least they've got followers. And they're loyal to Trump. Right now, it seems that's the only metric that matters.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Aviation sources have revealed to CNN News 18 that all mechanical and technical aspects are being investigated. The fuel switch cannot move without human intervention, but it is being probed if the fuel valve malfunctioned due to some technical or mechanical reasons. Let's go back to our colleague Arunima to understand more. Arunima, over to you.
So I tried to explain to you why fuel valve is suddenly in focus, because there is consensus that the fuel control switch cannot move without human intervention. Yet it seems that the AIB has concluded that the reason the Ahmedabad crash happened is because of engine losing thrust, and the engine lost thrust because fuel was not available. Why was fuel not available? If you see the pictures that have been posted in the AIB report, it's very clearly showing that the switch was in the run position. So the SOP was followed by the pilots. The SOP is, if your engine is losing power, you move the fuel control switch from cutoff to run, and try and cut off and then relight, and that is what has been done in this case as well. So SOP has been followed. The question is, why was fuel not available to the engine? If the fuel switch had not been moved manually, what else could have possibly happened? And that is why the focus is now moving to the fuel valve. The word transition, some of the pilots who have been with us on our shows have also said that the word transition is more apt for the fuel valve rather than the fuel switch, because the switch just moves from on to off. It has to move from run to cut off. There's no transition. The word for the switch is move. If AIB has used the word transition, could it be an indication of the fuel valve? And the reason is because of that malfunction that we just spoke about. The pilot report gave that error message, stab POS XDCR. It does not impact your fuel switch directly. But the question is, did it impact the overall sensors of the aircraft in any way? If it impacted the overall sensor and it went unnoticed, did it in any way impact the softwares that are meant to be running this fully automated aircraft? The two technical terms that I have been given, the thrust control malfunction accommodation, TCMA, and the full authority digital intent control, FADEC. Together, I'm told, they can even function without taking the command of the pilot. That's the key area where the focus seems to be right now.
Okay, Arunima, we did explain this to our audience earlier, but I almost want you to break it down for us in layman terms. What is a fuel valve, and how is understanding what a fuel valve is and how it correlates to this different from what the switch's purpose was?
So just think of your vehicle in layman's term, because we're all car drivers. Let me try and explain it to you in terms of how a car moves. When we are talking about a fuel switch, we move it from run to cut off. Exactly what happens is that there is a fuel tank, there's a fuselage, and there's a valve there which is operated.
Have you heard of the phrase dependency trap? Your favorite e-commerce apps use it every day. They hook you with cheap goods and endless discounts. They make you dependent, sometimes even addicted to the service. And once you get used to it, you can't let go. China has mastered this art. It has made everyone dependent on its supply chains. And just when the world needs it the most, China raises the cost and rewrites the terms. They've done it again this week. China has announced new restrictions. The target, 8 critical technologies that are used to make batteries for EVs. So from now on, if any Chinese player wants to transfer this tech, they will need a license. Whatever the purpose of this tech transfer, trade, investment, partnership, whatever the purpose, the Chinese player will first have to get a license from Beijing. In technical terms, this is called an export control. But in practice, it's a lot more than that. Beijing is basically tightening its grip on the global EV supply chain. And in doing so, they're affecting the whole world. They're doing it at a critical moment, when world trade has been rattled by a tariff war. You see, the Americans are placing barriers on trade. This is hurting economies, like we just told you. But it is also creating some opportunities for new players to step up and rebalance trade flows. And this is what China is trying to stop. It is exploiting its advantage in the EV sector. Chinese battery makers are way ahead of their rivals. Their batteries are cheaper and more efficient. They can deliver longer range than their competitors. So China has a clear technological edge. It dominates the global EV market, and it's now trying to defend that position. This license requirement will hurt expansion plans. Say a Chinese EV maker wants to build a factory overseas. They will now face hurdles. If they want to partner with an overseas player, they will need Beijing's permission. So this new requirement is essentially a barrier. China wants to control the market. Today, 70 to 90% of the EV value chain is dominated by China. This includes battery supplies, the machines needed to make these batteries, and also raw materials. In other words, China dominates all aspects of the battery trade. And now it wants to leverage this control. And this latest move fits a pattern. China has been imposing similar curbs for the past few years. They target rivals like the United States. They also target emerging economies like India. China has been throttling supplies to them. Look at the pattern. In 2023, China curbed the supplies of gallium and germanium. These minerals are important for EVs and electronics. Then last year, in 2024, China extended this ban on graphite. Again, graphite is needed to make all kinds of batteries. And this year, Beijing stepped up the pressure, first by curbing supplies of rare earth magnets, then by imposing a shadow ban. We've told you about all of it on this show. Reports say China has nudged companies like Foxconn to pull out their staff. Foxconn, as you know, makes devices like the iPhone. Foxconn is Apple's biggest supplier in the world. It is a Taiwanese company, but its largest manufacturing facilities are in China. Recently, Foxconn has expanded into India. But now they've withdrawn their engineers from Indian factories. These were Chinese engineers. They were helping Foxconn step up facilities in India. They were asked to go back. And reports say the Chinese government could be behind this move, even though no official ban was announced. And now Beijing is using licenses to lock in supplies. When you connect these dots, you see the big picture. And that picture looks like a warning. China has flipped the script on globalization. It is weaponizing those same supply chains to scuttle potential challengers. And India in particular is vulnerable. India gets 75% of its lithium-ion batteries from China. India gets raw materials and machinery from China. In 2022 alone, India imported Chinese machinery worth $1.5 billion. These were machines for battery production. And now China is locking up all these supplies behind license requirements and trade barriers.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Big breaking news coming in ahead of the West Bengal Assembly elections. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken on the TMC government in West Bengal. Prime Minister Modi has said, and I quote, West Bengal is suffering due to TMC misrule. People are seeing that the BJP is the only hope for the state, and the people of Bengal are convinced that only the BJP can deliver on development in the state. The Prime Minister is scheduled to hold a rally in West Bengal's Durgapur on Friday, which is tomorrow, and ahead of that, he has sent that message to the Trinamool Congress, helmed by Mamata Banerjee. So that's the big piece of breaking news that's coming in ahead of the assembly elections. It seems the tone and tenor of the entire fight between the BJP and the TMC is being set by none other than Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He has taken on the TMC regime in West Bengal, targeting Mamata Banerjee, saying that when it comes to any kind of development in the state of West Bengal, the people of Bengal only have hope in the BJP, accusing the TMC of decades of misrule in the state of West Bengal. Prime Minister Modi has attacked the TMC government once again, saying that, and I quote, West Bengal is suffering due to TMC misrule. The people are seeing the BJP with hope and are convinced that only the BJP can deliver on development in the state. So this comes ahead of Prime Minister Modi's rally in Durgapur in West Bengal. So that is the tone and tenor of the entire fight in the state of West Bengal right ahead of the assembly elections. Remember, reverberations of the special intensive revision by the Election Commission in the state of Bihar are already being felt in the state of West Bengal, where the knives are out between the TMC and the BJP. But Prime Minister Modi, who has sent that message to the TMC ahead of his rally in Durgapur. To get more details, I'm joined by my colleague Payal Mehta on the broadcast. So Payal, Prime Minister Modi setting the narrative when it comes to the battle in West Bengal.
Well, of course, it comes in at a very, very important time when the Prime Minister will be, in fact, holding a rally in Durgapur, which is a TMC bastion right now. Shatrughan Sinha contested on that particular seat, and you would have seen that next year you have the Bengal elections taking place. The way in which law and order has really been a misery as far as Mamata's administration is concerned, in the wake of repeated atrocities against women, the Prime Minister, of course, saying that people are sick and tired of the TMC misrule, people are seeing BJP as a hope, and are convinced that only the BJP can deliver on development. So it comes in at a very crucial juncture ahead of the big gathering that the TMC will be holding on the 21st of July. So obviously that's something which the Prime Minister is expected to take a pot shot at the shoddy administration, at the shoddy rule by Mamata Banerjee for the last decade or so.
Right. Thank you, Payal, for joining us on the broadcast with that piece of breaking news. So Prime Minister Modi sending that message to Mamata Banerjee in West Bengal ahead of his Durgapur rally. Shifting focus, India's space hero, Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, who has returned from an 18-day journey in space, is now in the process of readjusting to the gravity on Earth. This comes after his 18-day mission to the International Space Station. You can see the visuals of the physiotherapy session. We'll just get that to you, ladies and gentlemen, as the astronaut adjusts to Earth's gravity. Shubhanshu Shukla's week-long rehabilitation program has begun in the city of Houston after his splashdown in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego. Now that therapy session is underway in Houston as he reacclimatizes to Earth's gravity. So this is likely to be a 7-day program, a rehabilitation program in Houston. I'm joined by my colleague Shrishti Chaudhary on the broadcast. Shrishti, a crucial program now underway so that he is medically cleared for other operations, a 7-day rehab program now underway in Houston.
Yes. So the Indian Space Research Organization has confirmed that Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla has started this week-long rehabilitation program in Houston, and they also confirmed that the initial health assessment, which was done soon after the splashdown happened, then Shukla was found to be in a very stable condition. There were no immediate health concerns. But the basic focus of this rehabilitation exercise is to basically conduct various kinds of medical tests and to ensure that he is adjusting well to the microgravity. So the rehabilitation will focus on monitoring his physical, his mental health, and addressing any effects of microgravity. So because he spent about 18 days at the International Space Station, so this is a typical exercise that all astronauts usually undergo once they are back. Now, the Space Agency also confirmed that they have got the results of all the 7 experiments which he conducted there. So they are also analyzing those results. Meanwhile, I think with the rehabilitation program already on, we can also expect Group Captain Shukla to return to India also much sooner, because out of the 4 crew members, one of them from Poland has already left for Germany. So we could also expect his arrival to India soon.
Right, so we could see Group Captain Shukla's arrival back home very soon. You can see those visuals on your screen. These are the visuals coming in from Houston, where his rehabilitation program is currently underway. This is likely to be a 7-day program where he readjusts back to Earth's gravity. And Shrishti continues to be with us on the broadcast. This was a very crucial mission, a huge leap when it comes to India's space prowess. And now Shubhanshu Shukla heading back to Earth, but carrying with himself a lot of experience when it comes to the International Space Station. The splashdown was also a sight to see how the technology of the private sector and NASA rallied together to pull off that entire mission. But at the same time, a huge lesson for India as well when it comes to making this leap in space.
Right. So, I mean, this was a historic mission, considering it was only the second time that an Indian went to space and the first time that we had an Indian aboard the International Space Station. And the liftoff was smooth, the splashdown was very smooth, and soon after the down into the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Southern California. All the 4 crew members were, they came out of the SpaceX Dragon capsule, and after that, they were airlifted by helicopter from the recovery ship to the mainland, where the medical evaluations took place. And we also shared on CNN News 18 the visuals when he was flown to Houston, where he also met his family members, his wife and his child, and which was a very happy reunion after 18 days. And we also saw the visuals where he met fellow Gaganyaan astronaut designate, Group Captain Prashant Balakrishnan Nair. So Group Captain Nair had trained along with Group Captain Shukla, but he remained on standby for the mission. And then he also met the other team members from ISRO, who are also overseeing the entire rehabilitation program in Houston. So a lot of learning from this mission and a lot of experience that he will use for Gaganyaan, which is expected to take off in the year 2027. Just to remind our viewers that 4 Gaganyaan astronaut designates were selected, and Group Captain Shukla was one of them. So they have been training since 2019, and this mission is one of those learning steps which will eventually pave the way for India's own human space flight 2 years down the line.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shrishti, for joining us on the broadcast with that piece of breaking news. You can see those visuals on your screen. That is Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, India's space hero, going through the rehabilitation program as he readjusts to Earth's gravity, and also a huge lesson, as Shrishti was pointing out, when it comes to India's Gaganyaan mission in 2027. Shifting focus to some more news on the international front. Now what we're learning is Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has made a statement on the IDF strikes in Damascus. Netanyahu has said that Israel has set out a clear policy to demilitarize the region to the south of Damascus, from the Golan Heights to the Druze mountain area, in solidarity with the Druze community in Syria. Netanyahu has said that the Druze are citizens of Israel. Listen in.
אני מבקש לעדכן אתכם מה עשינו בסוריה ומה נעשה בסוריה. אנחנו קבענו מדיניות ברורה, פירוז המרחב דרומית לדמשק מהגולן ועד אזור הר הדרוזים. זה קו אחד. הקו השני, שמירה על האחים של האחים שלנו, הדרוזים בהר הדרוזים. שני הדברים האלה הופרו על ידי המשטר בדמשק. הוא שלח צבא דרומית לדמשק, לתוך האזור שצריך להיות מפורז, והוא התחיל לטבוח בדרוזים. את זה לא יכולנו לקבל בשום צורה. ולכן הנחיתי את צה"ל לפעול ולפעול בעוצמה. חיל האוויר תקף גם את כנופיות הרצח וגם את הרקד, והוספתי יד גם לתקוף בדמשק את משרד הביטחון. בתוצאה מהפעילות העצומה הזאת השתררה הפסקת אש, והכוחות הסורים נסוגו חזרה לדמשק. זה חשוב, והפסקת אש שהושגה מתוך עוצמה. לא מתוך בקשות, לא מתוך תכנונים, מתוך עוצמה. ואנחנו משיגים שלום מתוך עוצמה, שקט מתוך עוצמה, ביטחון מתוך עוצמה, בשבע חזיתות. זו גם תהיה המשך המדיניות שלנו. לא נאפשר לכוחות צבא לרדת דרומית לדמשק, לא נאפשר לפגוע בדרוזים, בג'בל דרוז. אני רוצה לשתף אתכם בדבר שריגש אותי מאוד ביומיים האחרונים. פנה אליי השייך מואפק טריף, מנהיג הדרוזים בישראל. הוא אמר לי את הדבר הבא. הוא אמר לי, בזמן השואה, כשטבחו בכם, אתם היהודים קראתם לעזרה, ואף אחד לא בא. היום טובחים בנו הדרוזים, ואנחנו קוראים לעזרה של מדינת ישראל. ואני אמרתי, הוא צודק, ופעלנו, ונמשיך לפעול לפי הצורך.
And I'm joined by my colleague Siddhant Mishra on the broadcast. So Siddhant, a very clear message coming in from Netanyahu that they will go all out to protect the Druze community of Syria after those dramatic strikes in Damascus by the Israeli Defense Forces. So Israel really flexing its muscles in Western Asia in the wake of its strikes on Iran, and the solidarity the Western nations have shown with Israel when it comes to its military objectives in the region.
Well, that's right. In fact, we were discussing this before also, Ayushman, that how, this could be Israel's way of welcoming the new government in Syria. Definitely, they have their own strategic objectives to achieve. Perhaps that is exactly what President Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu cited in the soundbite which we just played for our viewers. But also the fact is that this is also opening a new theater, new front from last 2.5 years since 7th October attacks. First it was Gaza, then Lebanon, then, Iran, and now, directly opening a front with Syria. Perhaps is something which many across the globe is not understanding. And the way these strikes were conducted near the presidential palace, on the military sites, perhaps is a strong signal which Israel is sending to Syria that and the message is very loud and clear that as far as the strategic goals are concerned, perhaps Syria has to comply with the Israeli demands. And at the same time, Ayushman, very important to highlight that last month President Trump was on a visit to West Asia. In fact, in that visit, he lifted sanctions on Syria, but he also urged both Syria and Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. So perhaps this strike is also seen as a way to remind Syria of that obligation which Syria has to meet. Perhaps there has been no indication coming from Syria after President Trump's urging both Syria and Saudi Arabia to join Abraham Accord. So could be an announcement, could be a tactical move by Israel to remind Syria that they have to abide by what President Trump said. And they have to come to the table for the Abraham Accord. At least not coming to the table, but need to give a signal. So that is exactly what strategic experts are talking about as far as this particular development is concerned.
Right, and Siddhant, at the same time, Israel also leveraging its military capabilities in this region, because it sent a clear message to the Syrian regime that the region south of Damascus, the Golan Heights, and even the Druze Mountains, they have to be demilitarized. And sending that message emphatically through these strikes, not just on Damascus, but the military infrastructure in Damascus. Secondly, also highlighting its ethnic campaign when it comes to showing solidarity with the Druze community. And Netanyahu has said that the Druze people of Syria are citizens of Israel. So it's a multi-pronged approach in the wake of the solidarity that the United States has shown with the Netanyahu government when it comes to achieving its strategic ends in the region.
Absolutely, Ayushman. Very rightly said. Because, on one end, Netanyahu is saying that this is a fight for the Druze people, for the minorities in Syria. Perhaps we all know what has been happening in last few months after the new government coming to power in Syria. So that is also one of the reasons which he is citing. Then he is also talking about the demilitarization of Golan Heights and the other nearby areas. So as I said, that there are definitely strategic objectives which Israel want to achieve, but at the same time, it is also it also has to do with the political objectives, with the entire politics of the region, because so far, when al-Shara came to power, perhaps with the support of Turkey, then Russian and Iranian forces withdrawing, Assad, went to Russia for asylum. All those things happened, but Israel during that time was busy, fighting war in Gaza, in Lebanon, directly in, engaging with Iran. But now, since those objectives have already been achieved, so the priority, the goalpost has now shifted to Syria. Now Israel has started talking about the minorities in Syria, about the strategic goals that needs to be achieved when it comes to the borders with Syria. So the message is clear that it's going to be the priority for Israel. At the same time, let's not forget, the way U.S. has lifted sanctions on Syria, the way U.S. urged Syria and Saudi Arabia to come to the tables to sign Abraham Accords. Perhaps it also has to do that. It could be the pressure mounting tactic by Israel on Syria, so that at least if they don't come to the table, they should start giving some signal of coming to the table to sign Abraham Accords.
Right, and clearly Israel ramping up the pressure on the Syrian regime in this manner. Thank you, Siddhant, for joining us on the broadcast and decoding that entire geopolitical tussle for us. Now, shifting focus back home, the National Security Guard conducted a mock drill in the national capital to test its anti-terror preparedness ahead of Independence Day. My colleague Arunima gets us this report.
What if a 26/11-like situation comes alive in the national capital? What you are going to see on your screen right now, the voice is already audible. That's the helicopter of the National Security Guard, the NSG, flying over one of the top hotels of the national capital, the Claridge's Hotel. What you're about to see is top-ranking officials of NSG, IG-ranking officials leading their team as they try to slither down a rope over the Claridge's Hotel. Why is this exercise being done? Because this is the time when 15th August, India's Independence Day celebrations are round the corner. The Parliament session is about to start, and around this time, the security threat in the national capital is at its peak. It is maximum. So if a 26/11-like situation is repeated, what is it that one can do? That is what is on display here. The helicopter that you're seeing right now behind me, you will see any moment senior official. Okay, there you see the rope has been thrown down. That's the rope, and from that rope you will now see officials slithering down on that hotel, replicating a situation where a hotel has been taken over by terrorists, and there is a requirement for NSG to slither down from the rooftop. That is the exercise you will see now. The rope has come down, and now you will see the officials, slithering down. There are people on the roof of the hotel who are holding on. Okay, there you see the first set of officials coming down, IG ranking officials, DIG ranking officials, commandos of NSG. They're all coming down that roof. They're coming down and showing you what to do, how to face such a situation when there are terrorists inside that hotel and you cannot access via the normal door or window.
And we're going to take a quick break now, but before we leave, AP Singh of Kolkata has been elected to serve as the international president of the Lions Clubs International. This announcement was made at the association's 107th International Convention held in Orlando, Florida. President AP Singh has received numerous awards, including multiple International President's Awards, as well as the Ambassador of Goodwill Award, the highest honor the association grants its members. And we're going to take a quick break now. More news and updates on the other side.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Aviation sources have revealed to CNN News 18 that all mechanical and technical aspects are being investigated. The fuel switch cannot move without human intervention, but it is being probed if the fuel valve malfunctioned due to some technical or mechanical reasons. Let's go back to our colleague Arunima to understand more. Arunima, over to you.
So I tried to explain to you why fuel valve is suddenly in focus, because there is consensus that the fuel control switch cannot move without human intervention. Yet it seems that the AIB has concluded that the reason the Ahmedabad crash happened is because of engine losing thrust, and the engine lost thrust because fuel was not available. Why was fuel not available? If you see the pictures that have been posted in the AIB report, it's very clearly showing that the switch was in the run position. So the SOP was followed by the pilots. The SOP is, if your engine is losing power, you move the fuel.
And welcome back. The push for Atmanirbharta in defense is gaining momentum and the private sector is stepping up. CNN News 18 visited a cutting-edge facility that manufactures titanium and super alloys for the BrahMos missile. It is the only private company in India producing titanium materials and components for the supersonic missile system, a crucial contribution to India's self-reliance in the defense manufacturing sector. My colleague Palki Sharma gets us this report.
UPDIC, which is Uttar Pradesh Defence Industrial Corridor, is one strategic initiative of the Government of India where the focus is on Uttar Pradesh and to make it a hub for defence equipments and platforms. We know that how 6 nodes have already been decided, and Lucknow is one node where I'm standing right now. As far as this particular place is concerned, so we know that how a BrahMos facility was inaugurated by Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh just a few weeks back. And right now, there are a number of companies that have already started working in order to push Atmanirbharta, in order to push indigenous production of the sort of components or the elements that we have been using in several sort of equipment and platforms in our armed forces. As far as BrahMos is concerned, so the facility where I'm standing, it is one private company, that is PTC, and this company is the only company that is providing titanium alloys and super alloys for BrahMos. When we talk about these sophisticated components, so not everyone can do it, but this time around this private company is doing it and has been providing these components for BrahMos production. I'll try to show you the visuals as to how they treat the raw form of the ores and the sponge into the sort of final product that we have in the form of titanium alloys and super alloys. Ravi Ranjan is showing you the visuals, in fact, where you are seeing that how in the entire process, there you have one form where these blocks have been created out of the initial sponge, and these blocks will further be melted, will further be treated to get alloys out of it. When we talk about BrahMos, so we know that how BrahMos supersonic cruise missile was used by India in Operation Sindoor in response to the sort of aggression that was in fact shown by Pakistan when India launched attack on the terror camps in Pakistan. And that's when we saw that how damage was seen and was done by the Indian Armed Forces on several sort of airstrips and air bases in Pakistan. And when we talk about these initiatives and in fact these platforms, so companies like PTC have been in fact playing a major role because they have been providing the components, they have been providing the elements that are somewhere helping our armed forces, in fact, to get the final product out of what has been intended. And right now, we are standing in a same facility where it is an initiative where UPDIC, we know that how government is working, but then companies like PTC are providing sophisticated titanium alloys and super alloys for the production of BrahMos that is somewhere going to help the sort of Atmanirbharta push that the government is eyeing on, and also the sort of boost that our armed forces are looking forward to. Your company, is helping in production of BrahMos as far as titanium alloys are concerned. So you are the only private company that is involved in the production. If you can throw some light on the kind of things that you have been producing and the kind of contribution you have as far as Atmanirbharta is concerned.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, so the site that you are in, this is our new project in the UP Defence Industrial Corridor. The objective of this new project is to establish India as a big player in defense and aerospace manufacturing and put it at par with the rest of the world. The biggest problem that we saw in India in trying to achieve this objective was its lack of capability to manufacture its own critical and strategic materials and the most critical components that go into very difficult platforms like missile systems as well as aero engines. That's what has been missing. This facility which we have created or we are creating is primarily geared to filling those gaps, not just in terms of technology, but also in capacity and capability where the scales are at global levels. So the way we are doing it is not just only looking at fulfilling the demands for India, for Make in India, but also fulfilling global demands in the form of Make in India, Make for the world. And that is how we have tied up also with many foreign OEMs, including the likes of Safran, Dassault Aviation, which make aircraft engines, Safran, which makes civil as well as military aircraft engines, BAE Systems, IAI, Honeywell Aerospace, many such global OEMs who are extremely interested and have tied up with us in various forms of various MOUs, long-term agreements to supply these materials and components.
And shifting focus to the world of chess, India's teen prodigy R. Pragnanda has stunned world number 1 Magnus Carlsen at the Freestyle Grand Slam in Las Vegas to storm into the quarterfinals. Carlsen crashed out of the winners bracket as India's new gen stars continue to dominate world chess. I leave you with that report. Good night and take care.
India's teen sensation R. Pragnananda has done it again, this time beating the world number 1 Magnus Carlsen at the Freestyle Grand Slam Tour in Las Vegas. Playing with the whites, Pragnananda outmaneuvered the Norwegian great in 39 clinical moves. The victory helped Pragnananda top Group White and seal his place in the quarterfinals. For Carlsen, the loss proved costlier as he failed to make the winners bracket after a narrow defeat to Levon Arnonian. Carlsen will now play in the losers bracket, meaning the best he can finish is third. The world number 1 is no longer in the hunt for the title. India, meanwhile, has 2 reasons to cheer, with both Pragnananda and Arjun Ergassi qualifying for the quarterfinals. This isn't Pragnananda's first takedown of the Norwegian great. He famously beat Carlsen in classical chess at Norway Chess 2023 and had earlier defeated him online. Now he's made another big statement, this time in the freestyle format. It's been a dream season for the 19-year-old who has already clinched titles at the Tata Steel, the Grand Chess Tour in Romania and the Oost Chess Cup. The stellar run has propelled him to a career-best world number 4, leapfrogging world champion D. Gukesh and compatriot Ergassi. Carlsen, meanwhile, may still lead the overall Grand Slam Tour standings, but the recent results tell a different story. He has now lost twice in a row to Gukesh, most recently in the rapid format, a format Carlsen himself claimed was not Gukesh's strength. The first of those defeats at Norway Chess saw Carlsen storm out in frustration, slamming the table after a blunder. It's a rare sight, Magnus Carlsen under pressure and India's Gen Z grandmasters turning up the heat.
और NRI?
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Aviation sources have revealed to CNN News 18 that all mechanical and technical aspects are being investigated. The fuel switch cannot move without human intervention, but it is being probed if the fuel valve malfunctioned due to some technical or mechanical reasons. Let's go back to our colleague Arunima to understand more. Arunima, over to you.
So I tried to explain to you why fuel valve is suddenly in focus, because there is consensus that the fuel control switch cannot move without human intervention. Yet it seems that the AIB has concluded that the reason the Ahmedabad crash happened is because of engine losing thrust, and the engine lost thrust because fuel was not available. Why was fuel not available? If you see the pictures that have been posted in the AIB report, it's very clearly showing that the switch was in the run position. So the SOP was followed by the pilots. The SOP is, if your engine is losing power, you move.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Big breaking news coming in ahead of the West Bengal Assembly elections. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken on the TMC government in West Bengal. Prime Minister Modi has said, and I quote, West Bengal is suffering due to TMC misrule. People are seeing that the BJP is the only hope for the state, and the people of Bengal are convinced that only the BJP can deliver on development in the state. The Prime Minister is scheduled to hold a rally in West Bengal's Durgapur on Friday, which is tomorrow, and ahead of that, he has sent that message to the Trinamool Congress, helmed by Mamta Banerjee. So that's the big piece of breaking news that's coming in ahead of the assembly elections. It seems the tone and tenor of the entire fight between the BJP and the TMC is being set by none other than Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He has taken on the TMC regime in West Bengal, targeting Mamta Banerjee, saying that when it comes to any kind of development in the state of West Bengal, the people of Bengal only have hope in the BJP, accusing the TMC of decades of misrule in the state of West Bengal. Prime Minister Modi has attacked the TMC government once again, saying that, and I quote, West Bengal is suffering due to TMC misrule. The people are seeing the BJP with hope and are convinced that only the BJP can deliver on development in the state. So this comes ahead of Prime Minister Modi's rally in Durgapur in West Bengal. So that is the tone and tenor of the entire fight in the state of West Bengal right ahead of the assembly elections. Remember, reverberations of the special intensive revision by the Election Commission in the state of Bihar are already being felt in the state of West Bengal, where the knives are out between the TMC and the BJP. But Prime Minister Modi, who has sent that message to the TMC ahead of his rally in Durgapur. To get more details, I'm joined by my colleague Payal Mehta on the broadcast. So Payal, Prime Minister Modi setting the narrative when it comes to the battle in West Bengal.
Well, of course, it comes in at a very, very important time when the Prime Minister will be, in fact, holding a rally in Durgapur, which is a TMC bastion right now. Shatrughan Sinha contested on that particular seat, and you would have seen that next day you have the Bengal elections taking place. The way in which law and order has really been a misery as far as Mamata's administration is concerned, in the wake of repeated atrocities against women, the Prime Minister, of course, saying that people are sick and tired of the TMC misrule, people are seeing BJP as a hope, and are convinced that only the BJP can deliver on development. So it comes in at a very crucial juncture ahead of the big gathering that the TMC will be holding on the 21st of July. So obviously that's something which the Prime Minister is expected to take a pot shot at the shoddy administration, at the shoddy rule by Mamata Banerjee for the last decade or so.
Right. Thank you, Payal, for joining us on the broadcast with that piece of breaking news. So Prime Minister Modi sending that message to Mamata Banerjee in West Bengal ahead of his Durgapur rally. Shifting focus, India's space hero, Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla